Hello. So last week we started our story about our adventure in our region in California. We wrote our introduction, which hooked our audience, and then it introduced the region that we traveled to. We did our first body paragraph that explained the landforms and the bodies of water. We did our third paragraph, which explained what vegetation and plants we found along our journey. And today we will be doing our third body paragraph, which is going to explain what animals we encountered on our journey. So if you refer back to the slide, there is a list of transition words that can help you to decide how you're going to start your story. We want to show that time has passed on. So the transition that I really like is the word eventually. So make sure you refer back to your circle map that you did last week to look at all the different animals that you encountered. So in the Central Valley, I encountered elk and ground squirrels, mice, gophers, and rabbits, much like we have here by our house. The San Joaquin kit fox, which is an endangered species, river otters. Have you ever seen a river otter? Oh my goodness, they are as big as human beings and they are scary. Reptiles, amphibians, including salmon and perch. There are also salamanders in the marshes, which is very interesting. So I want to make sure that I don't overdo it, but I want to talk about the animals I encountered along my way. And I think it would be smart for me to actually mention the San Joaquin kit fox because it's an endangered species. And this is a good place for you to use those describing words to describe the animals that you saw. I actually saw an elk recently, and they are really, really big. And if you ran into them with a car, they would win the battle. That's how big they are. Their horns are enormous. So I definitely want to run into an elk, and I definitely want to run into an endangered kit fox. So the transitional word that I have chosen is the word eventually. So make sure that you indent to show that you are starting a new paragraph. Now, you don't just put a space and start on that line. You actually, even though there's space here, you skip down to the next line, you measure your two fingers, and you start in for your indentation. So the word I have chosen as my transition is eventually. Eventually, through my long truck in the San Joaquin Valley, or my hike, how about that? Through my long hike. Remember, say it out loud because we speak how we write. So I want to say eventually through my long hike through the San Joaquin Valley, I encountered what I've been waiting to see, the amazing endangered kit fox. So now I'm going to write it. So eventually, through my long hike in the San Joaquin, and San Joaquin is a place, so we have to capitalize it. I encountered. I like that. It's just a different way of saying I ran into, I encountered. It just sounds like it was exciting, like it was an encounter. It wasn't just me seeing it. I encountered the amazing, endangered kit fox. Now, there are kit foxes in all different states, but the California kit fox looks a little bit different. It looks like a very, like a little bit bigger dog with a pointy nose and pointy ears, but the fox is lightly colored with dark areas around its eyes, and on its back fur is a little bit darker. They're a little bit fluffier and softer looking than a normal fox. So I had to look up pictures of what it looked like so that I would know how to explain it in my story. And you can do the same. That's why we have the internet. Google what it is you encountered to see if you can explain or describe this animal the way I am. Just remember, maybe your reader has never seen what you are talking about. You want to describe it as if they've never seen it before in a way that they can see it with their mind. The small, is there another word for small? Um, you can use a thesaurus. Maybe I'll put small for right now, but when I go back to revise later, small is one of those words that is overused, but just remind me later. We're going to go and change that using the thesaurus. The small, because nothing you write is set in stone. You can always change it later. Fluffy, light brown, small, fluffy, comma, light brown, animal, frolicked. That means like to jump around and pounced. It jumped, it hopped, it frolicked. Probably misspelled that, but guess what? I may just underline it so I remember to go back, check it, make sure I misspelled it, and fix it later. Through the tall grass. Eventually, through my long hike in the San Joaquin Valley, I encountered the amazing endangered kit fox. The small, fluffy, light brown animal frolicked through the tall grass. It was it was an amazing and beautiful thing to see something that is nearly extinct. Remember, say it out loud because otherwise it may not come out the way you thought it was going to come out. It was amazing and amazing. Oop, erasable pen. An amazing and beautiful thing to see something that is nearly extinct. That's what it means when an animal is endangered. It means it's on the verge of extinction. So that's something you definitely want to include with your animal encounters. Maybe you should check to see if there are any endangered animals in the desert, the coast, or the mountains as well. I also want to write about my encounter with the great elk. Also, I want to say also among my journey, no, during my journey, maybe during my journey, I saw the vision of the great mighty elk. I saw a vision of the great mighty elk. Also, comma, in my journey, I maybe just I saw the great and mighty elk. Now, I'm going to use what is called a simile to describe how tall the elk was. So I am going to say that it was as tall as something that was really, really tall as a towering mountain. How about that? So the elk was as tall as the towering mountain. Was as tall as a towering mountain. Its horns looked like a crown upon its head, like it was royalty, big crown. So it's, nope, that's not the right. Well, maybe it is. It belongs to. So its antlers, I'm going to underline that. We'll check it later, right? Stood like a crown on its head. I'm going to say, what a sight to see a mighty animal, a mighty and endangered animal on my journey. What a sight to see a mighty and a mighty and endangered animal running out of room on my journey. There I will stop for today. Tomorrow, we're going to learn how to wrap our story up in a conclusion. See you tomorrow.